Assalamu alaikum minaj bye, please pick up I'm calling. Today I want to tell you a story about a Ziyarat, a pilgrimage we took to Balochistan, where Quaidi Azam's residency is. This happened at the end of 2020, right at the COVID peak, and it was freezing like below zero in parts. My friend lives in Kota with his wife and kids. His older brother lives in Karachi with his family. The older brother had come to Kota for vacation and there were weddings and stuff, so they all decided to go do the Ziyarat and stay at the guest house for about a week. They had booked a government guest house. Usually they don't give it out, but through connections they'd managed to reserve it. They contacted me because I have a big car. They said, if you bring your car too, we'll have 2 cars and everyone can go comfortably. I was traveling alone, so I said fine and brought my car. We left around midnight and got to the guest house at about 4:00 in the morning. The guest house is a little past the shrine. The shrine itself doesn't take long to visit, but the guest house is a short ways beyond and we stopped a few places along the way, so it took time. Let me tell you the layout so you picture it. There's a paved main road. On the left is a hill, on the right a forest and not very dense. The kind of scrubby pine-like trees they have in Balochistan, the sanub trees that smell sweet. From the road a dirt track drops into the forest and leads straight to the guest house. The guest house has 2 buildings. If you come down the dirt road and go straight in, you're inside their boundary. It's fenced with metal grills rather than solid walls. To your right are the washrooms, the kitchen, and the dining hall. To your left are 4 large bedrooms. Behind the left building is the parking area for the rooms. Behind the kitchen and washrooms is a big yard and garden with chairs and a central fire pit where they make a bonfire. The whole place is surrounded by forest to left, right, front and back, and there's a mountain behind the property that rises up and is also covered in trees. At the top of that mountain there's a tower, a fire watch tower, and when we arrived there was a person standing on it. When we got there it was Asr time, almost Maghrib. The caretaker met us, welcomed us, sat us down, brought tea. Our plan that night was to barbecue. We had all our meat and supplies in the cars. The meat was packed in special sacks and not plain plastic, a different kind of sealed bag. There was 1 bag of chicken, 1 of small cuts of red meat, and 1 bag of keema. All of that was in my car. When we went to unload the cars, the bags were gone. We emptied my car and my friend's car, everything, but the bags weren't anywhere. They'd vanished. We asked everyone if anyone had taken them or moved them, and everyone said they hadn't. People suggested maybe something was left in the trunk somewhere, or someone accidentally put it outside, but no one could find them. Our whole barbecue plan was ruined. All the meat was just gone. The caretaker was a very kind man, and Balot people are famously hospitable, and he told us not to worry, he'd get food for us. So the barbecue didn't happen, but he said he'd arrange a good meal. He went and brought food, and he brought his family too. His wife and ladies from his household worked over from nearby, and they all came to the guest house to help. Most of the local people eat mostly meat, sheep and goat, and not many vegetables, so that's what they brought. The ladies observed Purdah, so we seated the women inside the dining hall. The dining area is the traditional floor seating, rugs and mattresses laid out with no tables. That's the custom there. The ladies sat inside, and we men sat outside near the fire pit on the chairs. We started eating, and then suddenly we heard screams from the dining hall. Everyone ran in to see what was happening. One of the women from the caretaker's family had started screaming hysterically. She was shouting something in Pashto that was impossible to repeat here. It wasn't appropriate words to say. She screamed a lot, and the other women were trying to calm her, reciting prayers over her, pouring water, doing whatever they could. They took her outside and eventually carried her back toward her house, which was nearby. They were trying to take her home to settle her. After that, the ladies explained to us that woman is mute, she's never been able to speak. When the mothers and women introduced themselves and talked, they realized that this girl who had started screaming was supposed to be mute. She can't speak normally. So how did she suddenly start shouting and using words? We were baffled. At that point the caretaker came over and told us more. He said that the girl is his older brother's daughter. She's been mute since childhood, but sometimes things happen, entities or possession, and when that happens she can speak. That was odd, and we didn't press him much. It felt like a personal family matter. We didn't argue, we accepted his explanation. Then he told us something else. He said, there's one thing I need to tell you, but I hadn't planned to unless we'd become familiar. If at night you hear someone calling from outside, if you hear a voice calling someone by name, don't answer. If a door knocks, don't go to the door, and when you go to the bathroom, go in pairs or groups of 2 or 3. We were like, what? Who would be calling us? Who would be knocking on the door besides our own family? He said he couldn't elaborate, he wasn't allowed to tell everything, but that if we hear a voice calling a name during the night, Don't respond and don't open the door. We laughed it off a bit, said okay and had our tea. Everyone was tired, so we all decided to sleep. We put the women and families into 3 separate rooms of the couples. The women and kids and I and 4 other boys, they were cousins, ages 17 to 23, stayed together in one room. Only the 3 of us, me, my friend, and his brother plus the caretaker, had been told about the warning. Nobody else knew. We stayed up for a while playing Ludo and talking, but at some point the younger kids got tired and went to sleep, and so did we. Later that night, when we were already dozing, a child of my friend's younger son, maybe 5 or 6 years old, heard a voice outside. First a woman's voice called out, then seconds later a man's voice called. All of us sat up and looked at each other like, who's out there? For about 10 seconds we just stared at one another. Small noises in that quiet place sound huge. Then another voice called out, this time aggressive and loud, and we heard a hard knocking like somebody banging on a door. It sounded like D-hack, 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 very forceful. At the same instant, a girl who was alone in one room started screaming again. We all rushed out to see what had happened. The situation was chaotic. People were very disturbed. Some of the women were hyperventilating, and everyone was panicked, asking whether someone was playing a prank. No one had come out, no one had exited the compound, so who was making the noise? Nobody could explain it. To calm things down, we told the ladies maybe it was a prank and tried to calm everyone, but people were terrified. We decided to move all the women and children into the large dining hall and put them to sleep there together. It was the safest and biggest space. The men stayed in the bedrooms across from that big room, and we stayed awake playing Ludo and keeping watch. We didn't sleep much. Finally, around Fajr, we managed to doze a bit, and later we all woke up around noon. That day we spent some time exploring the Ziyarat area. We visited Balochistan, a tree shaped in a way locals say looks like Allah's name, and the market by the residency. The women did a bit of shopping. We returned to the guest house around what would be Maghrib. When we got back, the caretaker's ladies were already in the kitchen preparing dinner. They brought fruits and dry fruit for us, very hospitably. By then some of us were curious about the watchtower on the mountain, so a few of the men asked the caretaker if we could go up to the fire watchtower. He looked surprised and denied anyone ever being up there in winter. He said the Forest and Wildlife Department puts a person in the tower during summer, but in winter nobody comes. If anyone were to go up there, they would pass by the guest house on the way. He also insisted nobody would be up on the tower right then. We kept pressing him, and finally he agreed to take us. It was a climb of maybe 20 minutes, higher than it looks and very cold. During the climb the Maghrib Azan started. At the top the tower was actually quite big, almost like a small room. We all went up and performed Maghrib prayer there, led by the caretaker. While we were praying, I noticed on the mountain opposite, a little distance away, there were things moving over the ridge, small, glowing shapes. After we finished the prayer and were looking, we realized they were like flames walking along the mountain, little clusters of fire moving. At first I thought people with torches, but they weren't. They were 7 separate balls of fire that moved and then just faded away at a point. When I asked the caretaker what those were, he laughed a little and said, "That's not people holding anything, those are jinn, they look like fire. We see them here often." At first we all mocked him and joked that he was making it up, but when the lights faded away into the hillside, it made us pause and think. If those had been humans, where could they have gone? The whole slope is forest and then rocky. It made no sense. We stayed up there on the tower for about a half hour talking, and the caretaker told us more things, including about the noises and voices he'd warned us about. While we were still up there, someone down at the guest house shone a very bright searchlight up toward the tower. It was one of the women calling out with a spotlight, signaling something. We decided to head down. When we descended, there was a commotion. Someone had been yelling from the kitchen that a child was locked inside a bathroom. We rushed over and found the steel bathroom door locked from the outside. It was a tough steel door. We had to force it open. It took effort, but eventually we broke it down and pulled the child out. The boy was maybe 6 or 7, my friend's brother's son. His mother had been standing outside the bathroom and said she didn't lock the door. She said she heard the sound of a latch being engaged from outside, and immediately the child inside began screaming. They had tried to open the door, but it wouldn't open. The latch that had been engaged was an upper latch high up on the door, the kind of latch a small child could never reach. How could it have been locked from the inside? The child said, "I was using the toilet and suddenly the latch was locked and I couldn't see anything." He was shaking and couldn't explain who had locked it. By then, the women said similar things had happened to their children, and that someone was calling their kids and even locking them in bathrooms. That was when everyone decided we couldn't stay. We had intended to spend a week there and had all our stuff, but after these incidents we concluded it was unsafe to stay overnight in the guest house. It was already late, around 9:00 p.m, and we worried about leaving in the dark and having car trouble out there. In the end, we left the guest house around 9:00, checked into a hotel in the local market area for the night, and then next morning we left for Kota. So that's what happened to the missing meat: the women's screams, the categories warnings, the strange voices and knocks, the fire-like things on the mountain, and the child locked in the bathroom. It was a very unsettling Ziyarat. We cut our trip short and left earlier than planned. That's the story.